Chapter 21. I walked across the casino floor through the hotel lobby to the VIP parking area to get my car. Before I get there, I hear my name called out. I turned around and there's Joey Stakes standing next to his black Lincoln Town car with a heavyset woman wearing a skin-tight black leather outfit that she bulged out of, especially around the middle. Her hair is teased up a good foot above her head. She's got to have on at least a pound of makeup on her face and bright ruby red lipstick that looked as though it was put on with a paintbrush. From where I stood, she looked like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. "Yo, Richie the Tailor, what's happening?" "It's your world, Joey. I'm just living in it," I said as we mob hugged. "Are you staying here, Richie?" "Nah, just in for the day. How about you?" "Got a suite for the night." He put his hand on my shoulder and we walked off to the side. "Geez, I hate to bother you, Richie, but do you think you can do something here with 150 G's? "I don't see why not," I said. "But with what's going down with this Security Act bullshit after the first of the year, I'm gonna have to deposit it first, then sign for it at a table and play a little." "Whatever you gotta do, Richie, you're the man." "Joey, you okay if I add it to my money so I can get a big game?" Joey steps back, shakes his head and says, "Madone, the ball's on this guy." I told him, "I'm not gonna gamble with his money. I just need it in order to get a $500 to $20,000 game. Forget about it, I'm in. Now let's get to work." He makes a hand motion to his big mama friend and she comes over. "Richie, this is Rosie Love. She has a stable of the best looking broads in town. Rosie, say hello to my friend, Richie the Tailor. This guy has the biggest balls in Atlantic City." Rosie leans forward and goes to give me a kiss as she reached for my testicles. Backing off, I said, "I don't think he's talking about those kinds." She grabs my arm, pulls me forward and gives me a whopper on my cheek. Then she hands me her pink business card. I look at the card and read out loud, "Massages are us." "That's a catchy name," I said. "Anytime you need company, give me a call," she said in a sexy voice, which proved something I learned a long time ago, which is never knowing what a sexy voice looks like. We all went up to Joey's suite, and when we walk in, that cute little Asian broad from a few months back is there. She's wearing a black leather exotic outfit. I didn't see handcuffs, whips, or any other dominant submission paraphernalia. And I wasn't about to ask Joey what he's into. I just followed him into the bedroom. He put a carry-on bag on the bed and opened it. It's packed with small bills. Before leaving the suite, Joey got a phone call. He started screaming in Italian at whoever was on the other end. He hung up and told me he had to leave for a few hours. He'd catch up with me in the Baccarat pit or back in the suite. He and Rosie followed me down to the casino floor. They left and I went straight to the cage. It took the cashier and the cage manager almost an hour to count the money. I walked out of the cage and I'm halfway across the casino floor when I see Lou, Joey's father, with a couple of his crew moving quickly towards the casino exit doors. When I got into the Baccarat pit, there's a lot of commotion going on behind the tables. I took a seat at an empty table where there's a dealer whom I've played with before. I asked him, "What's all the commotion?" "I'm not sure," he said. "It was all in Italian, but that guy Lou who you played with before got a phone call. It must have been bad news. He threw the phone at the wall, then he stormed out of the pit." The pit boss comes over. I asked him what Lou was pissed off about. He said, "Nobody knows what happened. And with those guys, believe me, you're better off not knowing." I signed a cash withdrawal slip for $310,000 and a $100,000 marker. I was $90,000 short, but they still gave me a $500 to $20,000 game. The pit boss put a $500 to $20,000 sign up, and a shoe later I'm down $200,000. While the dealer shuffles a new shoe, I'm wondering if Joey's call in the suite had something to do with his father freaking out. I cut the new shoe. I looked up to the heavens for some extra help, but all I saw was myself in the mirrored ceiling. "Wait a minute," I said to the dealer. "Look up there. See that guy? You know who that is?" He looked up at the mirrored ceiling and then looked back at me and said, "I only see you, Mr. V." "Nah, that's not me. That's the comeback kid. And you're in for a real treat, my friend." I stood up and started firing away. The shoe ended, and I'm $20,000 away from going into Joey's money. As the dealer shuffles the next shoe, I'm wondering what the Gamtucci family's future plans will be for Richie the Tailor, after he fucks them out of $150,000. I'm hoping the priest's brother, my insurance broker, sold me enough life insurance to take care of my family. I cut the shoe. The dealer shows me the first card out before he buries it, and the game begins. After the first 5 hands, I was into Joey's money. By the end of that shoe, I was halfway through his money. The dealer shuffles again, and I'm picturing myself on my knees, pleading with the old man who christened me Richie the Tailor, to tell his people to do a clean job. None of that chopping up stuff that they're always finding in Jersey dumpsters. I cut the new shoe. The dealer shows me the buried card. He's about to deal when a new dealer comes to the table. The original wished me good luck, then leaves. The new dealer removes the next card out of the shoe. He shows it to me, then buries it. He looked down at my remaining chips, then at me and smiles. "How are you making out today, Mr. V? I'll put it this way, I'm not in the dumpster yet." "I'm glad to hear that, Mr. V. Now let's see if we can clean you up a little." Clean up he did. I had just lost 220 hands in a row for $10,000 each. He got really lucky with those last two hands when he got two blackjacks with the aces underneath, so I couldn't even buy the insurance. The cut card was next to come out of the shoe and the dealer hadn't noticed. I told him because of what had just happened with those blackjack hands. "I'm not sure if I'm gonna play anymore." "Mr. V, I don't blame you," he said. "What's the most you could win, another $20,000? "Well, not exactly. I could bet $20,000 and get a blackjack and win $30,000. Or maybe get a double down hand and win $40,000. Or how about this one? I get a split hand and double down on both. I done that before with a $12,000 bet and won $48,000. But being's the cut card is coming out next, I might as well color up." He looked at the cut card in the shoe and said, "Good move, Mr. V." While he's coloring up my chips, I'm sitting there watching the casino crew huddled around the desk in the center of the pit. The casino manager, Max Goodman, is on the phone. He hangs up and starts talking with the casino crew. They disperse and go to their stations, but they look a little shaken. The pit boss comes back to my table. I asked him if he heard anything about why Lou left in such a rush. "I don't think we'll be seeing him for a while," he said. "Why is that?" I asked. "There was a shooting at a strip joint on the outskirts of the city," he said. "And from what we've been told, Lou's son was shot up pretty bad." "You're saying Joey Stakes got shot?" "That's what we've been told, Mr. V." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Now what the fuck am I gonna do? I got $150,000 of his money. The dealer slides the racks of chips in front of me. Max Goodman comes to the table and tells me a security guard will be in shortly and they'll escort me to the preferred player's cage. I'm sitting there thinking, do I take the money home or do I leave it here and wait till things cool down before taking the money out? I picked up the racks of $5,000 grays and the $1,000 oranges. I left the rest for the dealer's tip. Max and a security guard escorted me to the preferred player's cage. I got all kinds of paranoid thoughts running through my head as we walk across the casino floor. Things like, are the feds following me? Are they at the cage waiting to lock me up? Or what if Joey's people are watching me with all these chips? I made it to the cage with no hitches. I paid off my $100,000 marker, deposited $450,000. I'm taking $13,000 with me. I got in my Benz and got out of Atlantic City. More than once, I checked my rearview mirror to see if I was being followed. All the while, I'm scanning the radio for news about Joey. Finally, it comes over the radio broadcaster. A sting operation in Atlantic City turns sour after New Jersey State Police and FBI agents get into a shootout today with alleged members of an organized crime family out of New York. Law enforcement agencies said it was like the gunfight at the OK Corral. Details are sketchy, but from what we've learned so far, 3 or more people were admitted to Atlantic City Hospital with gunshot wounds. One of the injured is in critical condition. My mind is racing. I gotta come up with a game plan just in case Joey doesn't make it. He told me from the beginning never to mention anything to his father or grandfather about our little thing. Jesus, if he dies, God forbid, I shouldn't be thinking like that. But I don't want to carry our secret around with me for the rest of my life. Shit. What if Rosie or that Asian broad tells his family about tonight? Oh, I can see me explaining to them that Joey asked me to keep it between us. I doubt his family knows anything, or I would never have gotten out of Atlantic City. I hate to say what I'm thinking, but if Joey does go off the air, and no one ever finds out about the 150 G's, I could make another big buy-in. While I'm scanning the radio for more news about Joey, my car phone rings. I jumped and then answer it. It's Jackie. Where are you, Richie? I got tied up in New York. Is that friend of yours Joey Stakes, last name Gamtucci? Yeah, maybe. Why you asking? It was just on the news that he was shot in a strip club in Atlantic City. He's in critical condition. They said he's mafia. You gotta be kidding, I said. Didn't I tell you that night they were mafia and you knew it? She said in an angry voice. I want to know what's going on. Jesus, Jackie, I can't believe you. What do I care what he is? Look, I gotta stop at the Kensington Ave store to pick up money, then I'll be home. That night, after I lied through my teeth answering Jackie's Joey Stakes questions, I went down to the game room and turned on the TV and radio. I'm flipping channels on the TV, but there's no news on Joey's condition. I called information and got the phone number to the Atlantic City Hospital, but I was afraid to call thinking they might have the phone line tapped. I left for work early the following morning, constantly changing radio stations, but not a word was mentioned about Joey. When I got to the factory, I saw Jojo on his way back from dropping off a newspaper at Little Nicky's joint. I went over to pick up 2 Philly and a New York newspaper. Joey's and the rest of his family members' pictures are on all 3 newspapers' front pages. After reading the headlines, my question was answered. New York crime boss loses grandson in Atlantic City. Richie the tailor, what got you out of bed? Jojo yelled. Don't tell me you got caught up in that shootout in Atlantic City? Nah, I missed that one. It's a damn shame what happened there, Jojo said. But these young punks with their drugs today have no morals. They're no better than the blacks. They're all fucking animals. Was it a drug bust, Jojo? Had to be, he said. You don't start shooting it out with the feds over prostitution or gambling. It always comes down to drugs. They'd never get away with that kind of bullshit in my day when Bruno was around. Yeah, you're probably right, Jojo. But when Bruno ran the mob, only the hippies used drugs. Today, everyone and their mother is getting high. Richie, you're right about that. Listen to this, Jojo. It says here in the paper that this guy, Joey Stakes, is the grandson of Big Joe Gamtucci, also known as the Gentle Don. Gentle? Oh yeah, he's gentle all right, Richie. Go ask the boys in Little Nicky's joint how gentle he was back in the 70s, when they almost went to war with him over Atlantic City. I got to my office and started reading the newspapers in order to have a better idea of who and what I was dealing with. After reading the stories about them, I'm thinking it might be best to contact his family and give them back Joey's $150,000. I thought of going to his viewing or his funeral, but what if the FBI is watching? I just have to wait until things cool down. Then I thought, what if they don't believe me and think that there was more than the $150,000? Nah, they gotta believe me. I'm sure the fat mama Rosie and the Asian broad would back my story. But what if they already told them and they think I'm Jewing the cash? Before I what if myself to death, I decided to write a letter. In it, I wrote that I didn't take the money out of Cage because I was afraid the feds might be watching and the money's still there. I wrote some other bullshit in it to cover my ass. I'll mail it to myself, but I won't open it. This way, it will have the post office date stamped on it, showing I wasn't going to screw them. Chapter 28. It was the first week in October when I got the call. Buddy comes in my office and tells me Joe Ryan, the bank manager from where I have the business account, is on line 1. I get on the phone and Joe tells me last week 4 Atlantic City casinos put writs of execution against my business account. I asked him what that meant. He said it means no transactions can be made in my business checking account. All checks that were in the process of clearing are being returned unpaid. He said he was on vacation or he would have called me to let me know that $400,000 in casino markers hit my account a few weeks back and they all bounced. I told him I'm going to straighten it out today. He gave me the phone number for Kraft & Kraft. They're the lawyer firm the casinos are using. Before he got off the phone, he said, off the record, don't make any deposits. Fuck, now I gotta call my lawyer, Jerry Fine. This guy not only charges exorbitant fees, he's also Jackie's cousin. Before calling Jerry, I went right to the bank to get a list of all the checks that were returned. While Joe Ryan was working on that, I cleaned out my safe deposit box. I left the bank with the list that showed the casino markers, along with a few vendors and all the tax checks being returned. I wasn't worried about the vendors. I'll send them new checks from one of the new checking accounts. But the government, state, and city tax checks are a major problem. I can't call the priest, so I'm going to have to wait for the tax man to contact me. Hopefully by then I'll have these writs of execution straightened out. I called Jerry from my car and explained to him my situation. There's over $50,000 in the account and I can't touch it. I told him he's got to do something. I got payroll and I got to get those taxes paid. I asked him to do me a favor and not to mention anything to Jackie. He told me he'd get back to me, if not today, by tomorrow. Before I went back to my office, I made a stop at Liberty Mortgage. I picked up the papers for Jackie and me to sign for a second mortgage. She still has no idea what kind of financial shape I'm in, and I'm not about to tell her. I'm gonna have to forge her name. When I got to my office, I put the mortgage papers and the $45,000 from my safe deposit box in my safe. The rest of the day, I worked on my counterattack if the writs of execution stays on the account. The following day, I get a call from Jerry Fine's secretary. She said Jerry wants to see me. I told her I'll be right there. I entered Jerry's office. He's behind the desk with a cigarette in one hand and the phone in the other. He hangs up and says, "The writs are off." I took a seat in the chair on the other side of his desk and said, "Jerry, that's great. How did you do it?" He put out his cigarette and said, "My father's friend went through the same thing. Like you, he also used his corporate bank account when he applied for casino credit. By law, they can only go after personal accounts. So what's next? What can they do? They'll go after your property and personal belongings. They're not going to stop until you make a settlement with them." "Did your father's friend settle with them?" "He made arrangements, but he never paid them a dime." "How did he get away with that?" "It wasn't easy. He died. Suicide, they think." After hearing that, I changed the subject and asked what I owed him. He said, "You owe me nothing, just do me and my cousin a favor. Stay out of the casinos." I told him Jackie doesn't have to worry, those days are over. Before I left, he told me that I should call the casinos and work out a deal with them. He warned me not to wait, or they will put liens on all my assets. I made it through the rest of the month without a word from the casinos or the IRS. Jackie cut me a break, and we only went out with her friends every other weekend. Raymond's team is still undefeated, and business is good. I'm moving funds from one checking account to the other. The business account has $60,000 in it. The new bank account in Bucks County has $75,000. The bank account in Northeast Philly has $30,000. I got $45,000 in my safe, and in a few days I'm getting the second mortgage check for $50,000. That will get me a $250,000 buy-in. I'm headed back to my store after picking up the second mortgage check when my car phone rings. I answer it, and Jackie's screaming something about sheriffs. I can't understand a word she's saying. "Stop screaming. What are you talking about? What sheriffs?" "They're taking inventory of everything in our home, even my car." "My God, what did you do to us, you bastard?" I told her to shut the fuck up and put one of the sheriffs on the phone. One gets on the phone and says, "I told your wife once you straighten out your debt with the casinos, there will be no need for a sheriff's sale that's scheduled for the 29th of December. I told him to put Jackie back on the phone, but she wouldn't get on. I didn't have time to worry about Jackie's feelings. I got to get the money out of my 2 new checking accounts before they put writs of execution on them. They're not corporate, they're both personal accounts. Jerry Fine warned me that this could happen. Chapter 30. I caught a morning flight to Miami. My seat was in the rear of the plane. There's a lot of seniors on the plane headed back to the promised land. The plane takes off. Once in the air, I opened up my briefcase and took out my business ledger book and started doing the math. There's only going to be a few thousand in the business account after the priest pays the IRS and a few other bills. The 2 new checkbooks have $500 in each, and there's $15,000 left in Raymond's bar mitzvah money. I still have 3 credit cards that I can get $10,000 cash advancements on each, and I got $6,000 in cash in my pocket. I'm sitting there going over these dismal numbers when I noticed a familiar face headed to the bathroom. I quickly sunk down in my seat so he wouldn't see me, and I was glad that he didn't. There was nothing I wanted to say to Jordy the dentist, but I'm sure he had a lot to say to Jackie's yuppie friends about my casino gambling, especially after what happened to his mother when she got in bed with them. On the rest of the flight, I tried to visualize how Jackie and Raymond were going to react when they opened the door and see me standing there. Jesus, what if they never forgive me? After what I had done, I didn't see how they could. I know it won't be easy for them, but they're still my family, and I know they love me. It's been a little over 3 months since the last time I saw them, but it felt like a lifetime. It was after 12 in the afternoon when the plane touched down in Miami. As the other passengers moved slowly towards the exit door, I was stuck in the back behind an elderly woman with a walker. I was only a few feet away from the door, and I could feel the warm Miami heat. As I waited for the stewardess to assist in getting the woman with the walker off the plane, I looked out at the other passengers being greeted by family and friends. All of a sudden, I see Jackie standing alone with a smile on her face that told me I had been forgiven. If I could have gotten past the woman with the walker, it would have looked like a scene right out of a movie as I ran down and scooped her up in my arms, embracing her forever. But then my dream turned into a living nightmare as they hugged and kissed one another. They walk away holding hands through the crowded airport. I finally got off the plane, but they were long gone. I walked through the airport until I was outside. The bright Florida sun was beating down on me as the sweat from my forehead mixed with my tears ran down my face. I was feeling utterly helpless and in total disbelief from what I had just witnessed. In a matter of minutes, the pain I was feeling turned to rage. That piece of shit. How could she do this to me? An hour later, I'm sitting in the back of a cab out front of my mother-in-law's condo building. I gave the cabbie a $50 bill and told him to wait. I won't be long. The door opened and my mother-in-law stood there with a look on her face as if in front of her stood the Grim Reaper, or worse yet, the pissed-off Goy. She opened her mouth and said, "Richie, what are you doing here?" Her hands and lips are trembling. "It's nice to see you too, Irene." "Well, aren't you supposed to call or something?" She said nervously. "Jackie's not here." "Take it easy, Irene. I've already seen Jackie swapping spit with her little boyfriend at the airport. I didn't come here to start trouble. I just came to see Raymond. Where is he?" "He's still at school," she whines. "I think he has football practice today, but I'm not sure. Maybe you should call later when Jackie's home." Just then the bell rings and the elevator doors down the hallway open. Out step the lovebirds. "Oh my God," Jackie yells. "Get out of here or I'm calling the police." I moved quickly towards them. That faggot Jordy grabs her by the arm, pulls her back into the elevator, and the doors shut. Jackie's in there hollering at me to leave, and I'm trying to separate the doors so I can break that prick's neck. "You fucking pussy, open the doors," I yelled, and the only thing I could hear is that jerk-off telling Jackie to calm down. The elevator starts going down, and I'm still yelling. "Run, you little prick, but you haven't seen the last of me." "You got a real stand-up guy there, Jackie. I hope you're happy, you piece of shit." I'm screaming down the elevator shaft and Irene hollering at me to go away. "Fuck you," I hollered back. Then she starts bringing up how I ruined my life with my gambling. I walk back to her and she slams the door shut. I'm yelling at her from the other side of the door. "You stupid bitch, if it wasn't for your gambling degenerate husband and his fucking casino comp, I would have never been in a casino in the first place." She's yelling back, "Don't you blame my husband for what you've done in those casinos in Atlantic City? He never put his family in the position you put yours." Then she said in a nasty way, "He wasn't that stupid." "Shut the fuck up, you fucking hag, before you get me really pissed. And I start telling you about all the broads Al was fucking on the side. Now tell me where my son is." "You better leave us alone, Richie, I'm warning you." "I don't give a flying fuck about you or your daughter. Now where's my fucking son?" Meanwhile, all her nosy neighbors are coming out of the woodwork. "You better leave, Richie, or I swear I'm calling the police. You don't belong here. There's something mentally wrong with you." "Fuck you, Irene. I never belonged here. I'm a fucking Goy, remember?" "Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to say it loud enough for all your Jew neighbors to hear." I screamed up and down her hallway. "I'm Irene's son-in-law, and I'm a Goy, a full-blooded fucking Goy. That's it," Irene yelled. "I have the phone in my hand, you bastard." "Oh, Mom, tell me it isn't so," I yelled back as I held back the doors on the elevator from closing. "You wouldn't do that to me after what I did for you, you inconsiderate bitch. Now you have what you always wanted, little Jew boy with his own dental practice, to take care of your fucking whore daughter." I got into the cab. I asked the cabbie if he knows where Girard Academy is, and he did. On the way there, I started to think to myself, what if it's too late for Raymond? Who knows what Jackie, her mother, and that pussy Jordan has been telling him? What if he hates me like they do? No, that's impossible. He's my son. He has to still love me. I know he'll be glad to see me. "I'm coming, Raymond, I'm coming," I'm hollering as I run up the marble steps to the front doors of the school's administrative building. The doors are locked. I looked at my watch. It was a little after 4 p.m. I ran around the back of the building and there no one in sight. My heart pounding and I'm yelling, "Where's my son? Where is he?" Suddenly a door opens and an old man steps out. "Hey buddy," I said. "Maybe you can help me. I'm looking for my son. He's a student here and plays on the football team." The old man looked at me as if I wasn't there. I grabbed his arm and said, "Where do they play football?" He lifted his arm and pointed towards a hill in the back of the school. I ran across the parking lot and up the hill. Once on top, I could see players in their uniforms practicing on the football field. I was on the other side of an 8-foot-high cyclone fence that ran the entire length of the field. I moved quickly along the fence looking for an opening in a jersey with the number 16 on it. Suddenly I heard my son's name hollered out. I stopped and watched him run out onto the field. He got into the huddle and a few seconds later hollered, "Break." All the players clapped their hands and then took their positions. Raymond stood behind the center. He hollered out the play to the players on his left side, then his right. Hut 1, Hut 2. The ball was in his hands as he dropped back and threw a 15-yard pass that was right on the money. The coach hollered out, "That's the way, Ray." I couldn't see his face, but I knew he was smiling under his helmet. I was so proud of him. I stood behind the fence and watched him run a few more plays as tears slowly ran down my cheeks. I couldn't look anymore. I dropped to my knees with my face in my hands and cried like a baby. I wanted to hold him in my arms and tell him how much I loved him, but I was afraid he hates me the way I hated my father for the things he did to my mother. He was a drunk and I was a gambler. I took one last look at my boy and prayed to God to watch over him. I got to the airport and there's a late flight to Philly. After I bought my ticket, I went down to claim my carry-on luggage and briefcase that I had left there earlier. I took my seat by the window on a nearly empty plane. For most of the flight, I'm staring out the window into the deep black space, all the while consumed in thought as I struggled to piece together of when it happened. Then it hit me. It had to be New Year's Eve, the night of the fire. He must have drove her home. It was probably him in that BMW that almost ran me off the road. Then there was the time we went to that Buddha joint for dinner. That cocksucker was sitting straight across from her. They were probably playing footsies with each other under the table while I was sitting there trying to figure out where my next dollar was coming from. All those fucking nights she said she was out with her girlfriends, he was probably drilling her, and I don't mean her teeth. The rest of the flight I'm smoldering with feelings of revenge as I imagined her doing those things with him that she used to do with me. Chapter 31. It was the first week in August when from out of nowhere 2 FBI agents show up at my store. After showing me their ID, the one who's taking charge, Agent William Farrell takes out 2 big manila envelopes from his briefcase. He opens one of them up and takes out photographs with some familiar faces on them. People like Joseph Big Joe Gamtucci, Lou, the Arm Gamtucci, Joey Steaks Gamtucci, Gino Shorty Boy Ferrante, Tony Numbers Bernardo, and Johnny Detroit Johnny Delino. Agent Farrell asked me how I know these people. I told him from the Atlantic City casinos. He asked me what I was doing with them in the casinos. I told him gambling. "That's it?" he asked. I said, "That's it." Then he opens up the other envelope and takes out more photographs. The first one he shows me is me and Joey Steaks getting into his Lincoln outside the Coliseum. Then a few with me and Joey standing outside of his Lincoln at the Golden Mines self-parking garage. They're all not easy to make out, but in one of them it looks like he's given me packs of money and I'm putting them in the pockets of his black leather blazer he gave me to wear. There's one of me with Joey and Rosie Love from Massages Are Us. The last one he shows me, you see me and Joey mob hugging in the Kashmir nightclub. I asked him why he's showing me these photographs, and he asked me if I ever heard of the RICO Act. "I've heard of it," I said, "but what's it got to do with me?" RICO is short for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act. In a nutshell, Richie, it allows us to charge many people for broad activities that we determine are part of an ongoing criminal enterprise. So, let's say someone is taking illegal money in small denominations into the casino and depositing it in the cashier cage in order to retrieve the money in larger denominations. That's a form of money laundering, and that's illegal. If found guilty, one could do 10 to 20 years in prison and have to pay fines up to $500,000, or 2 times the value of the laundered funds. Listen, any money I got from those guys was in order for me to get a big game. I didn't ask them where their money came from, and they didn't ask where mine came from. We were partners. Richie, let me get this straight. You never changed up their small bills into new $100 bills in the casino cashier's cage, and then left the casino without playing. Look, it's possible I could have done that, but that's because I couldn't get a head-up game at that casino. So I would take the money to another casino in hope of getting a head-up game. That doesn't make sense, Richie. Of course, it doesn't make sense to you, and that's because you, like the New Jersey lawmakers who legalized this scam, have no idea how casinos operate. You may be right about that, Richie, but we do know how organized crime operates, and that's one of the reasons why we're here today. Well, I guess we're at a stalemate because I'm not talking anymore until I talk to my attorney. Not a problem. Talk with your attorney, and when we need to talk more, we'll be in touch. He put the photographs back in his briefcase. Before shutting it, he takes out another envelope. He hands it to me and says, "You can keep this one, and when we talk again, you could educate us on how these guys ran the Golden Mines." I reached in the envelope and took out a photograph of Charlie Myers and Joseph DeVito. They left the store, and I'm thinking the roosters finally came home to roost. Now what the fuck am I gonna do? I can't call Jerry. He ain't a criminal lawyer. Besides that, he hears the feds on my case. He might bail out on me altogether. Giving me the photo of Myers and DeVito makes me think they're more interested in them than they are the Gamtucci crime family. Do I call Charlie and tell him what just happened? I know there was more to why he kept asking me if anyone contacted me from the Casino Control Commission. Those hearings on the Golden Mines gaming license renewal brought up a lot of mob money laundering. Fuck, what if Big Joe and his crew find out I've been talking to the feds? Chapter 33. The Sunday morning before our trip to the Poconos, I get woken up from a lot of commotion out my bedroom window. I open the blinds and see cop cars and cops out back going through our dumpster. When I got outside to see what's going on, the cops stopped me from getting closer. An unmarked car pulls up and out steps two familiar faces in suits. Fuck, it's the two FBI agents that stopped by my store and showed me photographs of me with the mob. The cops let them look in the dumpster. Now there's a small crowd gathering, and next thing you know, TV stations show up with their cameras running. I hear one of the reporters say, "Another mob hit in Philly." I went back into the bar and called Danny, but he doesn't pick up. My mind's racing. I'm thinking crazy shit, like what if that's Danny in the dumpster? I went to go lock the back door and head up to my apartment to watch from there when in comes the FBI agents. "Hello, Richie, you remember me and my partner?" "Yeah, it's Farrell, right, Special Agent Farrell, but I didn't get your partner's name." His partner says, "Special Agent Martin." Agent Farrell points to a booth and says, "Can we sit there and talk?" We sat down, and before they said a word, I said, "I want to know who's in the dumpster." "Richie, you don't know," Agent Farrell said. That's when I knew it had to be Danny. I stood up and said I want to see for myself. They both got out of the booth to stop me. Then all of a sudden the front door opens and in comes Danny. I wanted to run up and hug him, but I didn't want them knowing that I thought it was him in the dumpster. Danny asked them what they wanted, and Special Agent Farrell said, "Danny Mac, the Irishman, do I have that right?" "You got that right, so tell me, what do you boys want?" "We want to know how Johnny Delino, you guys know him as Detroit Johnny, ended up in your dumpster with 2 to the back of his head and his right-hand index finger cut off." "Nah, can't be Detroit Johnny," Danny said. "I read he's in the Witness Protection Program." Special Agent Farrell's about to ask another question when the back door opens and another FBI agent hollers in, "Special Agent Farrell, you're going to want to see this." Danny and I went to follow him out, but Special Agent Martin stopped us. We went over to the window and looked out. There are agents all over wearing blue windbreaker jackets with FBI on the back. The whole area is covered with crime scene tape. All the trash is out of the dumpster, and next to it is Detroit Johnny's body. Special Agent Farrell has white surgical gloves on. He's holding what looks like my gun in his hand. Another agent is taking close-up pictures of it. Danny and I walked back to the booth. We sat down. He leans forward and in a low voice says, "You did report it stolen, right?" Before I could answer, Special Agent Farrell comes in with other FBI agents behind him. He's carrying a plastic bag with the gun in it. He puts it on the table and says, "Does this belong to either one of you?" Both special agents walk me out of the bar with handcuffs on. Danny tells me not to talk until his lawyer gets there. I had my leather jacket over my head to hide my face from the TV cameras that were on me while they put me in the back of their car. Before we pulled away, I looked out the window and caught a glance of Detroit Johnny's face before the coroner zipped up the body bag. The last time I was in the federal building was when my Bulber buddies, Frankie and Mike, got busted. Back then I went through the front doors. Now I'm going through the back doors. I dodged a bullet that day, and now I'm taking one. They took me to an interrogation room, uncuffed me, and sat me at a table that has boxes that are filled with folders that have dates on them. 2 men and a woman come in. Special Agent Farrell introduces them to me. They're FBI agents from the Trenton, New Jersey office. They all sat down at the table and started going through folders and taking out photographs. It seemed like they wanted me to see who's in the photos they're passing back and forth to one another. I'm catching a few of them with me in the casinos with the Gamtucci family and Detroit Johnny. They even had recent photos of the 2 young Turks going in and coming out of Danny Mac's. Then I'm seeing photos of Joe DeVito, Charlie Myers, and casino hosts from other casinos. They even have one of me and Carla having dinner in the Coliseum. But the photos that really caught my attention were the ones they had of the factory fire. I noticed a phone in the back of the room. I asked if I could make a call and they let me, but told me to keep it short. I called Danny at the bar. He told me once more not to talk, the lawyer is on his way. I sat back down and Special Agent Farrell starts talking. Richie, we know you're not going to talk until your lawyer gets here, but you should know that we're not charging you with Johnny's death. But you will have to answer to how he got your gun. Was the gun used in his death? Forget about the gun for now. There are two reasons why we brought you in today, Richie. What happened with Johnny wasn't only paid back for him flipping, it was also to send a message for Danny Mac to cooperate with the Young Turks who have moved in on the old regime. Cutting off the index finger is a trademark of Little Nicky Longo's crew, and Danny Mac knows that. So tell me, what's the reason I'm here? First, you can tell us how Johnny Delino got your gun, and if no laws were broken, there'll be no charges. I don't know all the gun laws, so it's best I wait till my lawyer gets here. That's fine, Richie, but here's the other reason why you're here. He reached for a folder and said, "Since we talked last year, we obtained more information on your involvement in our investigation of illegal money being laundered in the Atlantic City casinos." He starts taking more photos out of the folder. He puts them in front of me. There are ones of me with Joey Stakes exchanging money, and photos taken from different casino security cameras of me bringing carry-on cases filled with thousands of dollars in small bills into preferred players' cashiers' cages. They even had ones of me getting out of the Coliseum's limo behind Cafe Lucia's in Margate, New Jersey, and giving Detroit Johnny the saltwater taffy box with loose chips in it. Then he dumps out a folder on the table with more photos of the factory fire, and he says, "That was a nice score, Richie. And so was that other insurance one. What do they call it?" He looks over at Special Agent Martin and he says, "The Big D." Special Agent Farrell leans forward and says, "Before we have to indict you on multiple charges, how about doing the right thing? Tell us what casino employees along with owners know where that money was coming from that you were laundering." I didn't know what to say, but I didn't matter because Danny's lawyer, Neil Rossman, shows up. He sits next to me, opens up his briefcase, and says to the agents, "What do we got?" I sat and listened to Rossman busting the feds' chops. He gave them two choices: either book me or let me go. It looked to me that I dodged another bullet, but then another agent comes in and takes Special Agent Farrell to the other side of the room. They have a few words. He comes back and says, "Richie, you're under arrest for aiding and abetting a prohibited person the possession of a firearm." Rossman tells me he'll have me out in no time. They took a mugshot and fingerprinted me. Then they brought me before a federal magistrate. After that, they put me in a holding cell. 3 days later, a federal judge grants my release until my trial date. Danny picked me up. He tells me they had a warrant to search my apartment and they took my safe, but that's about it. I told him I'm sorry for not reporting the gun stolen, and he said after what Neil Rossman told him, it wouldn't have made a difference. Those pricks would have come up with another charge. He told me Rossman said they're looking for something bigger than a gun charge. I asked him if Rossman told him what that was. He said no. I told him what the feds want me to do. After hearing that, I asked him what I should do. "I remember when DeVito in the 70s bought the Golden Mines in Vegas," he said. "Everyone on the street knew where he got the money to do that, and so did the feds. That's why they put him through the ringer before he got approved for a gaming license in Atlantic City. Now he's out of there, but in a few months he's opening up the Illusions off the Vegas Strip. He spent over $900 million to build it, and I'm sure somebody got a piece of that too. Danny, I told those FBI pricks I didn't ask Joey Stakes where his money came from, and he never asked me where mine came from. We were gambling partners, that's all. I told Charlie Myers the same thing when he asked me if anyone contacted me from the Casino Control Commission about laundering illegal money in the Golden Mines. That was back when they were holding hearings for the Golden Mines gaming license renewal. I'm sure you're not the only one the feds are talking to, but Richie, if they can prove that DeVito or his employees, especially Charlie Myers, who's been on their radar from when he was a bookmaker in New York, knew the money you were cleaning was coming from the Gamtucci family, they'll go after DeVito's Nevada gaming license. If that happens, you'll have to go in the witness protection program." "Fuck that," I said. "I'd rather do the time." "If the feds don't get their way, Richie, they'll be looking to put you away for a long time." I told him what the feds said about Johnny's index finger being cut off. He said he made a call, and when things settle down, he's going to have a sit-down with the Young Turks and work it out. Before we got to the bar, I asked him how he knew Rossman and what's he going to cost me. He said, "Forget about it. I got you covered. Rossman's the best criminal Jew lawyer in Philly. He ain't cheap, but he'll get the job done. The feds know him good, so God forbid there's a conviction, he'll get you the best deal." Once in my apartment, I checked my messages on my phone, and there were 3, one from Raymond. He said he saw me on TV being locked up by the FBI. He kept asking if I was all right. I hear Jackie in the background telling him to hang up the phone. I called him back and got his answering machine. I left a message telling him it was all a misunderstanding and that everything's fine. The other messages were from my sister and my lawyer, Jerry Fine. I called my sister. I told her the reason they took me in was because they found my stolen gun with the dead guy in our dumpster. She laughed when I told her it was her fault for making me read the Godfather book. I called Jerry and he tells me not to call Raymond or Jackie if I try to make any contact with them. Jackie is going to get a restraining order. I got off the phone with Jerry and I looked around to see what the feds took. Besides my safe, they took my voice recorder, recorded tapes, and my unfinished manuscript. The safe has all my banking, insurance, and my casino information in it. I'm sure the special agents are having a field day with that. I called Rhonda, but I got her answering machine. I took a shower and washed away that cell smell on me. I tried to take a short nap, but I couldn't sleep. I went down to the bar. Danny's at the bar wearing a suit. I asked him where he's going. Johnny's viewing is tonight, he said. I was waiting for you to come down to see if you want to go, but it's probably better you don't. While I'm there, if there's something you want me to say to Johnny, I'll relay your message. I looked at Danny and I can see he's dead serious. All of a sudden, this strange feeling came over me and I start laughing hysterically. That makes Danny laugh until tears came out of our eyes. When I could finally speak, I told Danny to tell Detroit Johnny if he gets to speak to the big guy, tell him Richie the tailor wants to know who he worships. Danny stops laughing and says, "Wow, that's a good question. I never thought about that." I didn't want Danny going to Johnny's viewing by himself, when knowing the old regime he was affiliated with is being ousted by the Young Turks who are looking for a piece of his action. I had one of our bouncers go with him. That night I'm getting a lot of respect, especially from the wannabe mobsters. There's a lot of toasting going on for the new gangster in town, Richie the tailor. In the meantime, I'll be sleeping with one eye open. When I got back to the bar, there's a limo out front with New Jersey tags. I walk in and there's an unexpected guest waiting for me at the bar. She looked as gorgeous as when I first saw her behind that $5 blackjack table in the Golden Mines. I took her to the back booth and asked her why she's here. "I sold my condo in Atlantic City," she said. "The settlement was this morning. I'm catching a red eye back to Vegas tonight, so I don't have much time to tell you why I came to see you. I hope it's good news, Carla, 'cause lately it's only been bad. Richie, a few weeks back I had to give a statement to the FBI about our relationship. They asked me what I knew about you and Joey Stakes Scamtucci laundering money in the Golden Mines. I told them you gambled with him in other casinos besides the Golden Mines, but he never was with us when we went out together. They asked questions that I couldn't answer. Things about a fire and you being with Joey Stakes the night he got killed. Does your boss know about our relationship and that you're here today?" "Joe knows everything," she said. "I'm here today because he knows they're trying to get you to testify against him and Charlie Myers. He told me to tell you that it's important for you to meet with Charlie Myers next week." "Meet where? I'm not going to Vegas." She reached into her purse and takes out a business card. She hands it to me. It's from a well-known mob restaurant in South Philly, Villa de Roma. Written on the back of the card is 2:30 p.m., Wednesday, April 1st. I laughed and said, "April Fool's Day. Well, at least it's not Valentine's Day." She didn't get it. So I said, "The Valentine's Day massacre." She took my hand and said, "Richie, Joe promised me nothing's going to happen to you." I walked her out to the limo. She gave me a hug, and before getting in, she said, "Once this is all over, you'll come out and stay at The Illusions. It's fabulous." I didn't know whether or not to tell Danny about Carla's visit, but I had to after employees told him about the gorgeous woman who showed up in a limo to see me. I asked him if I should tell Rossman what she told me. He said wait and see what Charlie Myers says. He offered to go with me. I told him I got to do this on my own. The day before my sit-down with Charlie, I get a call from Neil. He asked me if I saw the news story about my psychologist, Dr. Rifkin. I said no. He said he was arrested yesterday for falsifying his patient's disability claims. The feds call it the Big D scam. They say it cost private insurance companies millions of dollars. I got to Villa de Roma a half hour early and took a seat at the bar. I was on my second drink when Charlie walks in. An older Italian gent meets him and gives him a mob hug. Then he comes over to the bar with his hand extended. We shake and he says, "Richie, good seeing you. I'm glad you made it." I follow Charlie and the older gent to an empty private room in the back of the restaurant. Before we sit down, two younger Italian dudes walk in and they tell me to strip down. I said, "What for?" Charlie said, "Just do it, Richie. They'll be done in a couple minutes." They left the room not finding a wire. I got dressed and took a seat at the table. Charlie asked me if I ever ate here before. I told him no. Then I said, "If they do that before every meal, I won't be back." He laughed and said, "I hope you're hungry because they make the best Italian food on the planet, and once we're done, we'll go over why I'm here. Is that okay with you, Richie?" "Sounds good to me," I said. We ate over small talk. Charlie was right, the food is delicious. After we ate, we got down to business. "Richie, here's the deal. The feds have enough to put you away for a minimum of 10 years, maybe longer, when they prove you lied in your testimony. Now let's say they cut you a deal and you testify that we knew you were laundering illegal money in the golden mines for Joey Steak Scamtucci. Our lawyers will have a field day with that, and here's how. Who's going to believe someone who burned down their factory for insurance money, faked being crazy to collect on their disability insurance policy, falsified bank and mortgage loan documents, had multiple affairs while gambling his money away, and who abandoned his family? Let's not forget, this case will be heard throughout the country. You don't want to carry all that bullshit on your back the rest of your life, do you? So Charlie, what am I supposed to do? I always liked you, Richie, and so does Joe. That's why he reached out in your behalf when others wanted to do you harm." "Who wanted to do me harm?" I asked. "Don't worry about that, Richie. It's been taken care of, and so is a plea deal for you with the government. You're going to have to do 36 months in a federal prison camp, one that will be close so your family can visit you. You'll have all the protection you need once inside, and you'll be made as comfortable as possible. When you're released, if you want, it's up to you. There'll be employment for you in one of our properties, but not on the casino floor. This is a good deal, Richie. I wouldn't turn it down. Can I have some time to think about it? I'd like to talk to my lawyer to see what he thinks." Neil Rossman already knows, and he agrees that it's a good deal, so much that he's waiving all his fees in your case. When would I have to go in? Sometime next month. He asked me what's my poison, and I said tequila. The waiter brought a bottle to the table, and we toast to better times. When I got back to the bar, Danny's in the back booth with Neil. I took a seat. Neil asked me what I think, and I said, "I got 36 months to do all the thinking I want." I never knew until then that Danny once did 24 months in a federal camp back in the late 60s for a tax evasion charge. He said if you have to go away, the camps are the best place to be. Before he told me what to expect once I'm inside, I asked Neil how DeVito got this deal done with the feds. "Richie, it's all about the money. From what I've read, DeVito and other major casino operators have plans to build multiple mega hotel casinos off the strip where DeVito built his illusions. One of them is that real estate mogul from New York who outbid DeVito for the Meridian Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, James Laurent." "Laurent is one of the reasons DeVito got out of Atlantic City," I said. "So now they're going to be neighbors." "Not only are they going to be neighbors in Las Vegas," Neil said. "There's a rumor going around that they're going to partner up on all of Laurent's casino hotel operations, and they're going to build a spectacular hotel casino on ground that DeVito owns in the marina area of Atlantic City." "Now, why would these two golden boys want to get in bed together?" I asked. "For James Laurent, it frees him up to pursue his political ambitions, which many believe is to run for president in the near future. And for DeVito, it gives him those political connections that will secure his casino hotel operations." "Neil, that doesn't make sense. How can a casino operator be president of the United States?" "There's nothing saying he can't, and Laurent already has major political connections in Washington. By the time he runs, and like I told you before, casinos will be everywhere. They'll be one of the main fibers of America's entertainment industry." "You think Laurent had something to do with my plea deal? I'm sure DeVito got him to make a few calls to Washington politicians whose states are looking to legalize casino gambling. They don't want any negative publicity being written or aired on how casinos operate, and what type of characters they attract. Your case would expose the dangers of having casinos in your backyard."